So I know what Shedeur is going through, and but here's the thing: the draft is not the game.
Don't you ever do this? Do you understand me? Do you understand me? Yeah. Do you understand me? Yeah. You're a man. We don't play like that.
Well, when Deion was at the scouting combine, he would tell people that were picked later in the draft, I'm not interviewing with you. I ain't going to be around for you to draft me. And the Detroit Lions, who were in a position to draft him, he told one of the Lions scouts, he says, oh, y'all don't want to draft me. I'm going to ask for so much money, y'all going to have to put me on layaway.
I'm telling you, that guy. I go. Bring out Joe Flacco. Man.
Terry Crews is stepping up to defend Deion Sanders after a lot of people blamed Deion for his son Shedeur's fall in the NFL Draft. Shedeur was expected to go pretty high in the draft after an amazing season at Colorado, where he threw for over 4,100 yards and 37 touchdowns. But when the draft rolled around, he dropped all the way to the 5th round at pick 144. And it didn't take long before people started pointing fingers at Deion, saying that his influence over Shedeur's career and his decision to be so involved might have been a big reason for the fall. Critics said Deion was too overbearing and that Shedeur didn't fit into the NFL's locker room culture. Some even said Shedeur's interviews were terrible, and skipping the NFL Combine didn't help his case either. And a lot of folks online jumped on Deion, calling him a helicopter dad and accusing him of damaging his son's prospects. But Terry Crews isn't buying into all that noise, and he jumped in to defend Deion, saying the draft isn't the end-all be-all. He pointed out that he himself was drafted way lower than he expected, but he kept pushing and ended up having a pretty solid career. But this whole situation has now turned into bigger than just football, and people are debating about the role of parents, especially black fathers, in their kids' careers when they have that kind of power and influence. While some think Deion is acting like the main character in his son's career, others are defending him and saying he's just trying to help his son succeed, and he knows better than anyone what it takes. There's a lot to unpack here, so let's break it down.
The risk, the sacrifice, what has to be done, doing what you do at your best in front of millions of people, it's the same thing. And I just respect it so much.
When it comes to Shedeur Sanders and his ongoing 2025 NFL Draft drama, Terry Crews is backing Shedeur, and he's letting everyone know he's been there. Terry, who played in the NFL himself from 1991 to 1996, opened up about going through a similar situation. And he told Shedeur to keep his head in the game and not stress over the draft drama, but to focus on what's next and keep pushing forward.
First of all, I'm that guy who thought I was going to get drafted high. And I was drafted in the 11th round, okay? They don't even have 11 rounds now, all right? So I know what Shedeur is going through, and, but here's the thing. The draft is not the game. And that is the most beautiful thing about it. It's early. One thing you're talking about with pundits, and everybody wants to say who they know and won and this and that, but they're always wrong, always. You go back to the end of the season, and they didn't pick the winner. This is why you have to play the game.
But that's not all. Terry and Deion Sanders go way back. And now sources are saying Terry reached out to Deion to show support. Deion's been catching heat from everywhere, with people blaming his helicopter dad parenting for Shedeur's draft fall. Meanwhile, other players are stepping up for Shedeur too. Giants wide receiver Malik Neighbors had a lot to say, especially about Shedeur being picked in the 5th round. He made it clear on the 7 a.m. in Brooklyn with Carmelo Anthony podcast that there's no way in hell Shedeur should have dropped that far. Malik mentioned some of the criticisms about Shedeur's attitude, like a tough meeting with Giants coach Brian DeBall, but he still feels bad for him. Malik pointed out how hard Shedeur worked, throwing passes behind a weak offensive line at Colorado, and he also shut down the idea that Shedeur is arrogant or entitled, saying it's just the way his dad Deion raised him to be.
You don't do that to a person. You can't knock his talent. I heard a lot of things about, he take unnecessary sacks. He had a battle line. We gotta stop making feelings with how people play. Yeah, he might have some things that he might say on camera, off the field. Whatever was dealing with that don't have to do with how he plays football. We here for one thing, and that's to play football. Everybody got different personalities. You never gonna meet somebody that got the same personality. So for them to judge him on just the things that he say or how he carry himself, how he carry himself is all about how his dad raised him.
But see, this is what's got people blaming Deion for Shedeur's draft drop. A lot of folks are saying Deion's handling of Shedeur's draft lead-up played a big role in why he fell so far. Before the draft, Deion was out here calling out anonymous critics of his son, and he even took shots at Browns quarterback Joe Flacco, which is wild because the Browns were actually one of the teams looking for a quarterback. In the first round, cameras caught Deion and Shedeur talking about the Browns, who traded back from the number 2 pick and ended up selecting Michigan's Mason Graham at number 5. That trade gave Cleveland 2 of the top 4 picks in the second round. And when Shedeur mentioned Joe Flacco, Deion threw some subtle shade about Flacco being 40 years old.
I'll tell you who they got. They got Joe Flacco.
So now people are saying that Deion's that guy who talks smack about everyone and then wonders why he's rubbing people the wrong way. And this isn't just a one-off thing. A lot of folks are also calling out Deion for trying to control every move in Shedeur's career, acting like he's the one deciding where Shedeur plays. And honestly, that probably scared off some teams and made them think twice about giving Shedeur a shot.
You have said that if the right team does not pick him, that you will intervene.
That's my son. It's not like who I would like for him to play for. It's a couple teams that I won't allow him to play for. It's almost like you got a child that's going into an occupation that you already dominated in. Like, come on. And you don't think I'm not gonna sit there like a navigational system and tell him take a right there, take a left right there, take a, not that, not that, oh, no. Like, that's who I'm called to do. That's my son. I'm not gonna let my son get down in no foolishness.
But you and I both know these coaches, these owners, right? You've been in the rooms.
Right.
The owners, billionaire owners,
yes,
will often say, well, this is a young man who should be making his own decisions. He's got this helicopter dad.
Not my son.
Some fans were quick to call out Deion, saying he's the perfect example of what happens when parents forget that it's their kid's story, not theirs. But others stepped up to defend him, saying Deion just wants the best for Shedeur and there's nothing wrong with him guiding his son. But it seems like the critics are winning out, with most people saying this isn't about Deion wanting the best for Shedeur, it's more about his own ego and running his mouth, even if it could hurt his son's career. See, Deion's made headlines for repeatedly saying he'd block certain teams from drafting Shedeur, and even claimed he wouldn't let his son play in certain cities.
Where do you predict Shedeur and Travis going in the draft?
Top 4.
Ooh, that's beautiful.
Anywhere from 1 through 4. One of them is gonna be 1.
That's what I'm talking about.
One of them is gonna be
speak it
1.
into existence.
And the latter one would not go behind 4. Now, all this is subjective because I know where I kind of want them to go. And let's not forget Shilo, okay? But I know where I want them to go. So there's certain cities that ain't gonna happen.
Okay, you on point.
It's gonna be it's gonna be an Eli.
So now some fans are saying that when Deion said certain cities, it ain't gonna happen, that was the moment Shedeur's draft stock really dropped. Because you can't act like certain teams are beneath your son's talent. Deion probably thought they had their pick of where Shedeur would go, but the NFL quickly reminded him who's really in charge. And let's be real, the NFL is like its own world. It's 32 teams, mostly run by old white men with tons of money. And if they think you're trying to get bigger than the league, they'll humble you real quick. A lot of people also say Deion needs to take some accountability for shielding Shedeur throughout his career. He's been the only coach Shedeur's had, but in the NFL, that's not how it works. And it's been reported that teams like the Giants were worried about Shedeur not being able to handle criticism from anyone other than his dad. And then there's also the whole thing about Shedeur's professionalism, or lack thereof. NFL Network's Tom Pelissero revealed that a longtime NFL assistant told him that Shedeur's body language in interviews was horrible, and even called it the worst formal interview he's ever seen in his life. According to Pelissero, the assistant said, "Worst formal interview I've ever seen in my life. So entitled, takes unnecessary sacks, he has horrible body language, he blames teammates, the biggest thing is, he's not that good." And then another red flag came from an AFC executive who pointed out that Shedeur seemed pretty inflexible during his team interviews. The executive said, "It didn't go great in our interview. He wants to dictate what he's going to do and what's best for him. He makes you feel small." And And let's not forget Shedeur refusing to meet with certain teams, skipping workouts and combines, and even opting out of events like the Senior Bowl. And whether it's fair or not, Deion is part of that equation. Now, it's tough to blame a dad for defending his son, especially when you think about the stereotypes around black fatherhood. Deion bet everything on his son being that generational talent that teams would be willing to overlook the process for. But some fans are saying that even if Deion and Shedeur come off as entitled and got punished for their attitude, they could have probably gotten away with all that if Shedeur was a better player. After all, teams will put up with a lot if they think you're worth it. But scouts just don't see Shedeur as talented enough to make those exceptions. Meanwhile, Deion is staying positive as always, sending a message loud and clear. Don't feel sorry for him. He recently hopped on X to say, "Stop the pity party because ain't nobody care like you think they do. It's time to self-reflect and look in the mirror and determine if what you see is going to get you where you want to go. Change ain't easy, and changing is vital. Let's work on improving and presenting the best you." But some fans are still saying Deion is doing way too much and needs to take a step back, letting Shedeur find his own way. One user responded to Deion's post saying, "Did you give that advice during the combine interviews or you just yapping? Leave the kid alone. He will find his way. That's the only way." And someone else wrote, "You can just speak directly to your son. Making every last thing public has proven not to be helpful." But what's your take on this drama around Shedeur's draft fall? Is Deion going too far, and is he to blame for Shedeur's drop? Or is the media just trying to paint him as the villain for doing what any father should, being present and actively involved in his kid's life? Drop your thoughts in the comments and stick around for this next video.